do my best to deliver it and see what He has for us. If you would turn your Bibles to the book of Exodus, chapter 4. Exodus 4, chapter 1. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, The Lord hath not appeared unto thee. And the Lord said unto him, What is in thine hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. And the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. That they may believe that the Lord of their fathers, of God, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee. Thank you for standing for reading. The Lord told Moses, he had a job for him to do. Right. We know the story. Moses came up, as we do a lot of times, with a lot of excuses. He said, they won't believe me. And he had the rod in his hand. The Lord told him to throw it down, and he did. And the Lord let him know that he was going to use what he had. And if I could title this tonight, I just simply titled it, Use What You Have. Right. There's a lot of things that we do not have, or we may never have. I thought I don't have a lot of money. Probably will never have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of material possessions and gains, and probably never will. But there's one thing I do have, and I have God. All right. That's the most important thing. There's been times in my walk with the Lord that I've come up against situations and circumstances that I wondered how I was going to make it through them. Financial, medical, whatever the situation may be. You may wonder, Lord, how am I going to get through this? But I thought, not one time did God fail me. He always got me through. He's always got me through. A lot of times it wasn't necessarily the way I thought it would be, but yet He's always been there. And so instead of focusing a lot of times on what we have, that's tangible to us, if you would. Let's focus on what we necessarily, or what we don't have. Let's focus on what we do have. Right. And I thought, at different times, God has shown up throughout the Bible, and we can look at the different circumstances and different situations, how God done great things with nearly nothing. And I thought, that's the way God likes to work. We sing a song sometimes, He makes something out of nothing at all. And that's just the way God works. Although God doesn't have to have us, but He so chooses to use us. I thought He can use anything. We read in the Bible that to get attention, He's used a rooster, He's used a donkey. There's other things that God can use, but He would prefer to use us. Right. And the thing is, a lot of times we look at God and we give Him excuses, Lord, why I can't do it. But then the Lord says, but look at what you have got. Just look at the simple things you do have. And I thought here, and as Moses comes to the Lord, the Lord comes to Moses, and he says, Lord, they won't believe me. And the Lord says, what do you have in your hand? I have a rod. And He throws it down and it becomes a serpent. And you might wonder, well, how's the Lord going to use that? But then we can go on over and we can read on in the different ways that God used that rod. That's right. That simple rod. And we read over in, I believe it's around Exodus chapter 7, and as the plagues began to come through, and God told to Moses to take the rod down to the river, and he stretched that rod down over the river become blood. And we can read that again where he told him to take the rod and to hold it up, and when he did, then fire and began to rain down out of heaven, and the hail and all the different plagues that God began to send upon. I thought he used by just a simple gesture of moving that rod. Right. We can read on even after Aaron, as he got the rod, and we can read of how the rod bloomed and the different things whenever they was out in the wilderness, and they was moving to and fro, and they stretched the rod out over the water, and the waters parted. He took the rod and he smote the rock. The water came forth. Many times God chose to use that simple rod. Was God in the rod? No. But it's what God chose to use. I remember one night we had an evangelist here, and he was using the illustration of when Elijah was ascended, and Elisha grabbed his garment and his mantle, and he put it upon him, and that evangelist that night had used the illustration of that, and he had a piece of cloth. He's using it as a mantle, and he had several people smite the ground, and like they were doing the water, and they put the mantle up on them, and just a simple illustration. No, God wasn't in that piece of cloth. God wasn't in the mantle that fell from Elijah, but it was just a symbolism that God moved for Elijah. He was going to move for Elisha. And I thought, but there was somebody that rode to church with us that night, and we were taking them home, and they were just very upset of all the commotion that went on that night as that evangelist began to use that mantle. And no, it wasn't that he was using that to say this is what we got to do to have God, but it was just simply saying he was using what he had to illustrate that the power of God was still moving in our present day. And a lot of times we would get caught up in the fact and think that we've got to have a lot of things. But all we've got to have is what God has blessed us with. Bear with me. These hot, humid days has got my asthma messed up. But I thought, instead of using all of his excuses not to do something, Moses used what he had. He went before the Lord, called him, and he said, Lord, I've got a speech problem. I'm slow of speech. I can't go out and talk. I can't be a leader. Lord says, well, take your brother with you. He made a way. Every time Moses came up with a situation, he had something there that he could use to help him in his walk with God. And I thought that we all have something that we can use with our help through the walk with God. And I thought his weaknesses was all he knew that he had, but he didn't realize the things that he did have. I thought then we can go ahead and we can read about David and in the Bible, and we all know the story of David. And David used what he had. We read this, whenever the lion came out and the bear came out, and David said he slew them. In my mind, I always felt like David, he may have used that sling and stone then. I don't know, but I always felt like David just went out and he just grabbed that old lion by the beard and he whipped it. This is what I felt like. I mean, David was out there, he was just a young kid, but the power of the Holy Ghost the Lord came upon him, and he was able to overpower it and to do over that. But then when he goes out to fight that giant, and he looks at it and he picks up that sling, that's what he was accustomed to. That's what he was used to using. And we read that Saul gave him his armor and his shield and all those things, but David said, I've not proved these things. But I know what I have proved. I've proved what God has allowed me to use time and time again. And I thought David went out there and he picked up those 5 stones and he went out, and we know how he slew that giant by simply using what he had. And I thought a lot of times we're looking at everybody else's ministry. I thought I was at work the other day, and the girl working there at the front desk, I walked through, and she was listening singing there on her phone, and I recognized the voice. I thought, and I said, "Who you listen to?" And I thought it was Jeremiah Yoakum. I'll just say who it is. And he's got a church out there around West Liberty or around Liberty or somewhere over in that area. And she said, no. She said, and he told me who it was. And it was a young boy. And he was singing. And then she said, but listen to his testimony. And he was raised in a Baptist church there close. And he said he went to Redemption Road. And he said, I always prayed, Lord, let me sing and preach just like Jeremiah Yoakum. And he had it down pat. But I thought, he wasn't Jeremiah Yoakum. And I thought, if you've never heard him preach, he's a wonderful singer. I don't think I've ever heard him preach, but he's an outstanding singer. And I thought, but God didn't, but for whatever reason, he felt like he had to be just like him. And I thought, that's not what God's chose us to be. I thought, I'm Brother Sidney Sparks' son, but I thought, I don't preach nothing like he does. And I thought, I'm not going to try to preach and model my preaching after him. I thought, I might have some of the mannerisms because I've raised up under him, but still, we don't preach the same. I thought, we don't sing the same. There's a lot of things we don't do exactly because God has called each and every one of us for a specific job. He's called each and every one. He gave us all our ministry, and He's got us what we have, and He wants us to use what He has blessed us with. Right. But I don't have much. All Moses had was a rod. All David had was a sling. Then he had to go out in the brook and pick up the stones. He didn't even have the rocks for the sling. All he had was what he had in his hand. And I thought we need to take what we've got and use it for God. I thought, when you looked at David and Goliath, it was obvious Goliath had the advantage. I mean, he was a giant. He had a sword and he had a shield and a sword the size of a weaver's beam. I mean, it was massive. And all the things. But there was that one spot that was not protected. And by simply using what he had, God took what he had and he was able to overcome that giant. And I thought there's things in our lives that we're looking at and we think, I can't, but I thought whatever it is in our life that we need to overcome, if we just simply use what God has blessed us with, we can be overcomers. How about we find the lad in Jesus' time, and he went to hear the Lord, and all he had was 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes, but he was willing to give it to God. Oh, that was his lunch. And whenever they came and they said, I don't know how the story goes. The Bible don't give us all the details. But for somehow, they found out that young man had it. And somehow now, the word got to him that the master needed it. And he offered it. And the multitude was fed. And I thought, are we offering what we have? I thought what we have, a lot of times, it seems insignificant. But what we have is important when it comes to God. It's the simple things that we have. And I know I'm not preaching no big outstanding 5-point message tonight, but I feel like I'm delivering what the Lord has given me. Are we using what we have? And I thought I want to use what I have to the ability to serve God. I thought, what? We hear all those great stories in the Bible of all the things that has happened, and when we look at them, and we think, but that was in the Bible. Those things happening, but we're serving the same God. We're serving the same God. The same God that raised Elijah. We're serving that same God. And I know but we've got to be willing to step out and do what God wants us to do. Be willing to use what we have. I thought we have, you might say, well, what have we got? We've got time. I thought we all, and I thought we live in a fast-paced world. And